Hey, it's Drew Bennett from Big Damn Kid, and today I have issue number 33 of Transformers. Somehow, I have two of these. I don't know exactly what happened and why I have two of them, but this, as I said in the last episode, this is a story that I'm not sure exactly where it falls in the continuity, but we are going to wait to find out the fate of Blaster and the Throttlebots and Goldbug, because we're taking a departure. We're actually taking a departure from the Pacific Northwest, and we're going across the pond, and we're going to merry old England for a story called Man of Iron. And it's interesting to point out that basically every issue has been written so far by Bob Bodansky, and in this one you don't see it. You don't see a thing across the bottom with all the pictures of who did the, not pictures but the names and stuff. It's really right along the side, and the script is by Steve Parkhouse, and it says they use Don Daley, who's been let's see, it's like assistant editor of the Transformers. He is shown as the American editor, and the editor-in-chief is Tom Defalco. So I'm not sure exactly what happened at this point here in the, with the comics, but this particular comic was written, and it takes place in England. And we're at the castle called Stansham Castle, somewhere in southern England. So this castle right there. And basically, over the years, it's withstood invaders and things like that. But right now, it's a tourist location, and it's it's busy enough, but not so busy that the guard there can have a little nap. So his name is George Cousins. He's there taking a nap. However, his reprieve is interrupted by a giant sonic boom. And here we get three Seekers coming over the castle. Now, I could point out right here that is Ramjet. Now, this one, as it peels off, looks very much like Skywarp. And this one, you can't tell who it is whatsoever. Now, the thing is, Skywarp should be in pieces on ice at the Ark. We know this from the issue number 19, where Omega Supreme blasts them into pieces, and they have yet to mount a rescue mission. Even in 2 issues ago, issue number 31, issue number 31, they didn't have those other Seekers. It was just Ramjet and Thrust, because Dirge and Skywarp, Starscream, and Thundercracker are all basically iced at the Ark, and no one has recaptured them or has freed them. So it looks like Skywarp flying over. It's definitely his colors. And as he flies over, he drops a couple of bombs. Okay, a couple of bombs. Now, luckily, the bombs, when they go off, they don't hurt anybody. They don't leave much of a crater, but they scare the bejesus out of George Cousins, and he calls the police. He wants an ambulance and the police, and he needs people out there in case somebody got hurt. Luckily, nobody got hurt. The authorities show up, and they have George give a call to the curator of the castle. His name is Roy Harker. And Roy Harker he's over at his home, and he's heading out leisurely over to the castle. He's not in any big rush. His wife tells him that their son Sammy is out in the woods near the castle, and Sammy is out playing. So, along the way, stop and call for Sammy, tell him to go home. Well, he calls for Sammy. Sammy does not come out and talk to him. Sammy hides, and he watches him, and Sammy is playing at Indians. He's pretending he's an Indian. Now, this is 1987. It's not really the PC time. We did not really say Native Americans. Kids played cowboys and Indians. They really did. And so he's playing at being an Indian brave, and saying that he's out shooting at moose, and he has a bow and arrow. He shoots his arrow. It's the last one he has. It gets stuck in a tree. He climbs up to go get that arrow in the tree, and when he does, he climbs out onto that branch, and when he climbs out onto the branch, suddenly he's face to face with Autobot Jazz, and he freaks out, screams, and nearly falls, catches himself, lands on the ground, and runs all the way home. Jazz, meanwhile, follows him, He follows him all the way back to his house, and he gets the number of the house, the where he lives, and Jazz, it says Autobot codename Jazz to Autobot leader, subject under surveillance, security threat minimal, advise. He doesn't say Grimlock, he just says Autobot leader. And then Autobot leader to codename Jazz, maintain surveillance in event of security, uprate, engage, and restrain. So he wants to engage on this kid, which it's kind of odd. Meanwhile, his father, Roy, is out at the site where the bomb happened, and apparently one bomb went off, but one got lodged deep under. It got deep under the castle, and they say that the Air Force, they don't know what kind of aircraft those were. They're unmarked. There's no identity or nationality. As Roy's talking to this officer, George comes up and tells him that Sammy's come home and he's in a state of shock. She's called the doctor, and can you get home as soon as possible? So he tells him that, and then we go back to 1070, where 1017 at the castle stanchion, a great force led by Godwin the Strong Arm did surround and besiege the castle and plunder the neighboring village for food and cattle. So there is a fight happening at the castle back in 1017. Big fight going on here, and this guy Godwin the Strong Arm seems like a nasty fellow. And then an earthquake occurs, and it scares all of the people and the horses, and a giant man of iron comes out. And he's kind of indistinct. The man of iron comes out, and no sword can stop him, as he, they say he has a javelin of flame, and thunderbolts came from his hands. So you can see him blasting here. Looks like a regular blaster. He kind of looks like Jazz. One of the priests beseeches him to leave, and he goes off into the woods. Now, we find that this is Roy reading a story to his son, and says the man of iron was seen in this vicinity 3 times in all. There seems no pattern to his appearance, and other than one thing. According to the parish records, an earth tremor preceded his visitation. Each visitation. Isn't that interesting? And his son thinks, that's scary. Well, he just went face-to-face with the robot. He's freaking out. And he says, Sammy, the robot you saw in the woods today, did it look like this? And he shows him a picture. And, Sammy's like, well, it could be him. It's more or less like that. And he's like, how did you know? And his father says, this is a drawing taken from an illuminated manuscript found in the castle chapel by his predecessor 25 years ago. The Man of Iron, the manuscript is over 900 years old. And he says the manuscript was completed in 1070. It's over 900 years old. That's part 1. Now, chapter 2 is kind of trippy. Chapter 2 happens, Sammy's in his room. Okay, so Sammy's in his room, and then some weird stuff starts to happen. Sammy ends up climbing out onto the roof. He sees something go overhead. And then he looks down and he sees Skywarp, and then Skywarp, so he sees a UFO, he sees Skywarp, then suddenly his bed is out in the woods, and Mirage shows up for some reason. So Mirage shows up, and, Sammy freaks out, he's, get away from me, I don't want you here. And, back in his room, he wakes up, and then he starts floating. His bed starts floating away. And, it's really something weird. His clothes start floating up. And that picture from the manuscript floats away. And a hand grabs it. And Sammy's like, put me down, I don't want to go. He wants to get away. His parents are outside of his room. The door is locked. And his dad, screams for Sammy. They come in, and the room is just, the things are floating in shambles. He sees that the window's open and a lot of air is coming through. That's got to be really windy, like a hurricane's in there. And, his dad looks out the window in that image, and he sees Mirage walking away into the woods. and he says, what the heck is going on around here? The next day he comes to the castle, and at the castle, the the captain there of the guard, he says, that they've cordoned off the entire area, and now it's a question of special security. And the reason why is they've done a sonic scan of the hill beneath the castle, and they were hoping to locate the unexploded bomb. But what they found is a very large object buried deep under the hill, very large, very, very large. It's roughly the size of an ocean-going liner. And he says, well, what is it? And he said, we don't know. We called in extra men, and we're going to excavate. He wants to discourage speculation, and he suggests that he does not speak to anybody about this. Meanwhile, back at Sammy's home, Sammy's walking home, and he sees this really awesome Porsche. And then the Porsche, he looks at the Porsche, and the Porsche starts talking to him. Opens up the door and tells him to come in and get in the car. Now, I don't know about you, but we had that whole stranger danger stuff when we were kids. You never take rides from strangers. You never take money from strangers. Well, you never get into a car that's talking to you. Honestly, this little kid, and Jazz is a total creeper there. And he's like, why not? It's a nice day and you're on holiday. Why don't you get in, little boy? That's just creepy. Sammy does get in, and he pretends that he's racing, because he's a little kid, and he gets excited. There's this awesome car, and he goes to sit in it. His mom calls for him. He's like, Sammy, what are you doing in that car? The door slams, and poor little Sammy gets driven away, and Jazz abducts a child. Jazz abducts a child. Why? What is the significance of this kid, and why would Jazz abduct him? It's crazy. There's some craziness going on in this issue. Anyway, this is Drew Bennett from Big Damn Kid. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as Big Damn Kid. You can also find me at BigDamnKid.com, where I do a full write-up of every single issue. And I'd love it if you subscribe, leave me a comment, let's engage, let's talk about Transformers. Did you read this? Did you think it was kind of weird? It's kind of crazy that Jazz is abducting children. Anyway, I really appreciate it, and thanks for watching.